can we stop talking to your vulva about your vulva, please? Just talking about pounding asses a little bit.
And this is Gatriarchs. So this morning it was breakfast, and we're sitting around the breakfast table, and my son is sitting away from these sliding glass doors, and it lets in all this light. And it was just one of those moments where I like looked at him, and the light was hitting in his face, and he was eating his cereal, and he was just, it just like his beauty, like just, it's just magic. It was just one of those magical moments. And I looked right at him, and I said, Emmett, I want you to know that you're beautiful, and Daddy loves you very much. And he turned his head towards me, and he locked eyes at me, and he went, butthole.
I kind of wish he had turned to you and said, why do you refer to yourself in the third person? But
that's
butthole's pretty
But
great
it was
too.
such a perfect moment where I'm trying to have this earnest moment with this 3-year-old, and he just wanted to say butthole to me because he knows it normally makes me...
Welcome to my entire life. I think that you and I have had exchanges like that before, where I'm trying to say something sincere and earnest, and so I'm glad what goes around comes around. But that's
absolutely.
You know, this morning I was sitting around having breakfast, probably about 4.5 hours before you were, with a middle schooler, and she suddenly said to me, "You know what? I'm amazing," and I'm like, "Yes, girl. Yes, you are. I'm glad you're saying that. You are amazing." And she just goes, "Yeah. I know, Dad. That's why I said it."
I kind of wish when she had said that, you turned to her and said, "Oh, honey, no, you're not."
Well, we have had a tense household for the last 24 hours because of tween attitude. So I admit, in my mind, I was kind of like, yeah, but you weren't so amazing last night. Or you were more amazing yesterday morning than you are this morning. But I'm glad that you are embracing your amazingness. Good for you, girl. Good for
Gavin,
you.
what age? So when you would like fantasize about, not fantasize, but when you kind of dream about being
very young, very, very young.
But when you would think about being a dad, like when you're like, someday I'm going to be a dad. What age were the kids in that dream?
Probably 2 and 3 and 4 years old, because that's just what you think of as parenthood. Your default age is having little kids.
Well, I've been asking this question a lot because to me, I feel the same way. I was actually thinking like 4 to 5-ish, but generally kind of like a little preschooler kind of kid, kindergarten
that's
idea.
Default. That is central casting for children is preschool.
But what I found is that the men I talk to usually say some sort of preschool, like take him to Disney or go on the rides age. All the women I've talked to, every woman has said baby, like infant, holding in their hands. And that's really fascinating because when I thought about being a dad, I never imagined a baby involved. Now I realize that you have to do the baby until you get to toddler. But it was just I don't know. I put it on our list to talk about because I thought it was really fascinating that like men were thinking about this like preschool age and like women were thinking about this baby.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's because it's the most idealized time. I mean, even preschoolers are a complete pain in the ass, but they're adorable pains in the ass. And so you just like, it's the quintessential parenting experience.
Speaking of preschoolers, so we are towards the tail end of our potty training journey, and I thought just for the next few minutes before we jump into our top 3, we could talk a little bit about potty training in general, because so my son is potty training and he now uses the potty fully, no diapers. However, nighttime, we are still at the tail end of like, we're waking him up once a night usually to go use the potty. Other than that, like there's no wet beds or whatever, and we haven't quite figured out how to just let him sleep through the night and see like when that happens. But the thing that made me think about this was like, my house is covered in piss.
And then you had kids.
And then we had kids, and now there's more piss. But we're like, pee in the little hole in the toilet. We'd like try to do things, but like, boys, they just kind of fire hose it all. And it is so disgusting.
We are disgusting.
We are disgusting
every single
people.
time I get down on my hands and knees to clean the toilet, and I see that crustacean, that yellow film on the the back of the toilet where the bolts are, and you think, We are disgusting.
We are horrible.
Creatures.
We don't deserve anything we have. We're
Nothing.
disgusting.
Nothing. But also teaching my children to be like, well, now we got to clean up. And teaching my son, you know what, in the morning, you might want to sit down to pee when you're still half asleep. Like, and, you know, everything kind of needs to be shaken awake. Let's not shake the dingle all over the toilet, all over the bathroom, you know?
Yeah. Instead, do, you know, your morning pee, go into the shower and do a handstand so you can pee.
Exactly.
But there's so many methods for potty training, and I'm curious if you did the same method we did. We did like the 3-day naked method, where like you do it over a weekend, and on Friday they're not allowed to wear any clothes, and you're indoors all day, and you basically watch them like a hawk. And when the second they start peeing, or they have that, you know, I'm about to pee face, you grab them, you run them to the toilet, you sit them down on the toilet, and then they pee. And the idea is that whole day you start to connect for them the idea and the feeling of peeing and being on the toilet. So day one is they're naked all day and you're just doing that. They literally like, don't go outside, don't put a shirt on him. Yeah. He is naked the whole day. And then day two, they're allowed to wear clothes but no underwear. But it's the same thing where you have to watch them like a hawk, and the second they start peeing or they have that face, you run them to the toilet. And then after that, they start to associate it, and then it's kind of like a slow, then you can wear underwear and then whatever. And we had been told by everybody we asked, they're like, this is the method. This is the method. So we did it, and I got to say, it worked perfectly for us. Like, it was wonderful. What did you do?
Well, first of all, I think as with so much of parenting, it's what works for you, and you just got to be zen about it. You have to be zen about it, because you're going to be doing extra laundry for a very long time. And man, I think that we went through an awful lot of middle of the night peeing, an awful lot of it. And I would get frustrated, and yet at the same time, it was one of my better parenting moments of being like, oh, here we go again. Because we had an awful lot of peeing. But I will say, we tried to do that 3-day method, and the very first day, my partner was standing with our kid in front of him, and it's hard to explain what this, but they were looking out a window together. So the kid's butt was toward my partner, right? And suddenly the kid goes, and my partner starts to be like, oh, are we gonna? And then it was not explosive diarrhea, but like a missile of poop shot out of the butt onto his shirt. Like, and there was no warning, except for just like and it shut up. And you would have thought that the kid had reached over to grab their ankles to shoot it out. No, somehow in squished butt cheeks, a poop missile shot out. At which point my partner was like, I'm out. We're not doing this. Now, admittedly, we were trying to potty train before we probably should have. Another guest that we're going to have pretty soon, I will mention this, said to me one time, I will mention this to her, said to me, Gavin, stop thinking that you need to potty train a boy before the age of 3. It just save yourself the trouble. And so we then didn't push it. And eventually my son was ready to tell us when he was done. And it was actually really fluid. If you don't push it, fluid, pun intended. If you just don't push it, I think. Anyway.
But that's the problem. That book that we read that everyone was like swearing by, which I think is called Oh Crap, it says, if you wait too long, if your kid is 3, they're like, you've missed the boat. And so we panicked because we didn't even know when to do it. And our preschool was like, oh, if he wants to move to the next class, he needs to be potty trained. So right. I guess we'll do it. Then we read the book and we were like, fuck, we are so behind. So I don't know.
But is he peeing the bed now, or maybe a little bit?
No, he isn't. But we're still waking him up at night.
Oh, right. You know, some advice that I got from a friend that seemed a bit cruel, and maybe the International Criminal Court might be calling us after admitting this. But she set an alarm on her phone at 4:30 in the afternoon and said no more water after this, because her kid was going to bed at like 7:30. And I started doing that too, and it did work.
That's the most helpful thing for us for sure, is like after dinner, literally no liquids. And of course, inevitably, his mouth is the Sahara Desert out there. He's like, I'm so thirsty. I'm like, you can't have anything. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we solved this. So
Solved. As always with Gatriarchs, we have solved absolutely nothing. We've just complained about our kids.
Yeah, we've just added to the problem. So with that, let's jump into our top 3. Gavin, this week is your list. What is our list?
So our top 3 list, we were on a vacation theme last time, and we complain about our vacations a lot. I want to know, what are the top 3 successful vacations you have had with kids? Number 3 for me is just road tripping. Avoiding any kind of plane situation whatsoever and taking a long weekend and just staying at basically Motel 6s along the highway and road tripping. And that means an awful lot of bad, and yet, I mean, obviously, awesome fast food. Literally just road trips. Don't think of anything as a destination. Just think of your vacation as the journey. And that always works for us, frankly, still at this age. Number 2, recently, we went to Cancun, all inclusive.
Because you're rich.
Because we were pretending to live the lives that we deserve, and I am definitely paying for it in the end. But I gotta say, I don't regret it until my credit card bill comes through, although we did use the points. Anyway, I digress. At the age of 9 and 11, when I can just say to my kids, just fuck off and go eat ice cream all day long, and then they would keep coming up to me and saying, can we go have more ice cream? And I'm like, don't ask me, because then I'm going to say, no, you need to go have a salad first. Just go do it.
It's all inclusive, bitch. Keep going. Yeah.
Exactly. I do have to say, I'm totally against all-inclusives because of exploiting labor and the environmental cost, and yet at the same time, like we say on Gatriarchs, I'm a complete hypocrite. It was great one time, and I'm going to go donate to the Sierra Club after this. And finally, number 1 is just a hotel with a pool. Doesn't matter where. My kids just want a pool all the time. It can be a Motel 6 on the side of the road, and that is their ideal vacation. What about you, David Evan Vaughn?
So I have very young kids, as we know. So we haven't really taken a lot of vacations, unfortunately. It's something we talk about where, like, we need to push out of our comfort zone. But and number 3 for us was we went to Florida for Christmas last year, and there was just not enough space in both the hotel we were at and then at my mom's house. And we just were like, I don't know, Hannah maybe sleeps in the closet. And we put her little pack and play in the closet. And it was so wonderful because it was a great kind of ripping the Band-Aid off of, like, your kids can sleep anywhere. Yeah. They will be fine. Totally. And my son slept in a big bed, like a regular bed with no crib rails, with no one thing. We just added like an outline of pillows so we didn't roll off. And I was so terrified. He went right to sleep, and he was totally fine. And so it was a really good moment for us to kind of be like, your kids will be fine. Yeah. Number 2 for me was a friend of mine, actually, you know this person, he owns an island in the middle of this gorgeous lake, and we went to his lake house, and it was the same thing where, like, we had never had naps somewhere else, and we were so nervous, and he's in a different location or whatever, and so we put him down for his nap. He went right to sleep. Yep. He was fine. He slept for 2 hours. He woke up. It. And so it was so wonderful because we were out of our comfort zone. He was in a different bed. We were eating different food. We were swimming in a lake. It was so, so great. So that was number 2. And number 1 for me, it may sound silly, but was the first 2 days after our kids were born when we were in the hotel next to the hospital, and our kids actually slept in the drawers of the bureau. Nice. We pulled a drawer out, we put a blanket in, and we laid our baby inside. And it was just this, it was almost like, this is a weird way to say this, but it felt like camping, where, like, me and my husband were up in the middle of the night at this hotel feeding this baby. Yep. Or it's just this adventure. It was the beginning of this beautiful adventure together. So, and number 1 for me was those first 2 days in the hospital with our kids sleeping in the drawers. I'll post, when this episode airs, I'll post the photo of Hannah, my daughter, in the drawer of the bureau at the hospital. Okay, so next week, our top 3 list came from a listener. Nice. I got a message from one of our listeners who suggested a top 3 list, and we're going to go with that.
Is it someone we know already? Does that count?
It is somebody I know already, so it does not count. And the top 3 list for next week is top 3 movies you wanted to show your kid before they were born. So, like, when you imagine being a dad, you're like, I can't wait to share these 3 movies with my kid. And so that'll be next week. So our guest this week is somebody who just had a birthday, by the way. Happy birthday. She is a sex and intimacy coach. She is an author of the book Radical Intimacy. She is a certified sexologist, which I need to know
Nice.
the certification part of that. She's the mother of 2. Please welcome Zöe Kors. Hi, Zöe.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Did you have a great birthday?
I did. I'm running a year-long program for women, so we had our inaugural group session last night. So that was really heartwarming and wonderful and exciting. And then I thought about, this is my last, I'm going to reveal this. I'm 59. So this is my
work. Yes.
I'm starting my 60th year, and I just thought, what do I want? I want to just do whatever I want for my birthday. I just closed my eyes and imagined the best possible evening.
Which was?
I ordered an array of food from one of my favorite restaurants, and I have watched Succession season 4 for the first 5 episodes. I've watched each episode twice because there's so much.
I know. I haven't watched it yet, and I'm so eager to do it.
Yeah, it's just it's the last season, so I'm absorbing every nuance, and that show is all nuance.
A lot of nuance.
My husband has not yet seen it, so I just said I want delicious food, and I want to binge the first 5 episodes of Succession with you.
So I was so excited to have you on here because I'm like, finally, we're going to talk sex. Because frankly, David and I don't think talk enough sex. We do a lot of parenting talk. And so here we have a certified sexologist who tells us that on her big ass 59th birthday, she's going to watch TV and stuff her face, which sounds fantastic.
Wait, I know a person, and I won't reveal them, but I know a friend who, on her 40th birthday, she was doing the same thing you did. She was thinking, okay, I'm turning 40. I want to just do something just for me. What have I always dreamed of doing? And she self-organized a gangbang. And yeah, she was like, I've always wanted to. I've always felt embarrassed about it. But I was like, I'm turning 40. I'm going to fucking do this. And she organized it. And she had somebody help her to kind of like screen and do all like the safety stuff. She was like, it was amazing. I was like, God bless you. What an incredible gift to yourself.
Well, thank goodness David and I could bring the sex to this conversation with a sexologist.
That's the difference between 40 and 59.
Totally.
Yeah. So Zöe, when we were talking yesterday, you were saying I'm a certified sexologist. I consider myself pretty sexually awoke, but I don't even know if I know what that means. What does that even mean? Well,
I wish I could say that it meant a lot, but really what it means in my case anyway, it's not something I pursued. I don't know. I guess there are programs where you can, like, I'm a certified integrative somatic trauma therapist. That's a specific training and a program that, you're required to reach a certain level of skill with, treating trauma. My certification in sexology came through the American Sexology Board or Board of Sexologists. The director of that organization reached out to me and said, listen, I want to offer you this. I've read your book. I've stalked you. I know what you do. And we would like to offer you a certification because of your accomplishments. So I said, yes, please. Thanks. I can tell you what I do as a sexologist. And I guess, according to the board, it's legit. So I work with people to improve their intimate lives. I work with people to improve their intimate lives. And that includes, all aspects of intimacy, including physical intimacy. I do a lot of sort of unwinding cultural narratives and myth busting, a lot of pleasure-based sex ed, which is something that none of us receive. It's all, reproductive at best. And
if we're lucky.
Yeah. And yes, even at that, very few of us really know how our bodies work, what body parts we have and what they do in terms of, pleasure and their entire physiological raison d'etre. And then, And then there's like a whole component of, our self-talk, what kind of permission we give ourselves, the shaming of any kind of sexual pleasure or pleasure in general, guilty pleasures,
Yeah. Is that what your book is about, largely? Is about what you're talking about?
My book is about, yes, and there's a whole component. I mean, my book is very much about the three...
We have it right here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
I have a previous incarnation as a graphic designer, so I designed my own book cover, much to the delight of my publisher. Not.
So I bet you probably deal with a lot of parents too, who have kind of, I think what's common is with parenting is that you kind of become this like parent person only. And then as the kids get older, you start to go, wait a minute, I left parts of me behind. And I think a big one that's very common in parenting is sex. And you and I talked about this a little bit last night about maintaining your whole person as a parent. But I bet when people come to you often for help, they're like, yeah, I became a parent and then I forgot that sex was a thing that I did for pleasure and connection.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, though, that most people who enter into parenthood don't have a fantastic sex life to begin with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Most? Wow.
Well, I'm trying to think. I have a wide array of clients, but many, many of my clients are heterosexual couples.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah. My LGBTQ clients are much more fun, to be honest with you.
Well, why is that? Is it because they're less inhibited sexually and in their expression, would you say?
Well, I think that anybody who falls out, falls into that category of, the vast array of LGBTQ, sort of expressions, and identities. I think that living in a heteronormative society, you have to deal with your sexuality already. You have to give yourself permission to want what you want. And so, that's sort of like you guys do the work.
We also say I've said this before on the podcast is like gay people when they literally two people go to bed, there is a conversation required about what is going to happen because there is no default with heterosexuals. It's like, well, if we don't talk about it, we kind of get what's going to happen. When two men or two women go to bed, you literally have to discuss what's going on. So you're starting the process with a dialogue about sex. So I think that's why we're maybe a little ahead of the heterosexuals. I always love when a straight person's like, so I don't know, but I'm thinking about maybe having an open relationship with my husband. I'm like, girl, you are 20 years behind us. Yeah. Get going. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. Gay people rock.
What you're talking about parents and the struggles that we have to maintain intimacy and whatnot and seek pleasure, do you feel like that's a particularly American trait, or is this worldwide? Can you say that this is a universal phenomenon that we all kind of lose ourselves in the parenting aspect?
I have never actually lived in Europe, traveled extensively, but I've never really lived in Europe. So and there are so many different subcultures. I think that depends where you are. It's different if you're in Paris than you are in London, but I do believe that we have this undercurrent of like a puritanical sort of ethos in this country. And I think it's really, and I don't believe that there's all this sort of evangelical Christianity and, a lot of sex shaming that doesn't really exist. I mean, you go to London or England and there's a little bit of a, people aren't really sexually embodied. It's not a place that you think of like maybe Sweden or, maybe Italy in a certain flavor or areas of Africa, where sexuality is much more widely accepted as part of a human existence. In this country, we are just flat out shamed for having desire. for having an interest in sexual pleasure and sexual relating.
Yep.
And just having the conversations, right? Like inhibiting any sort of dialogue about what you want or what you don't want, or
Right.
all of that stuff. Like just inhibiting the dialogue is so powerfully negative to all of that.
Right. I mean, as a sex and intimacy coach in the United States, I spend an unbelievable percentage of my clinical hours helping people discover what they like. Mm-hmm. Because they won't touch themselves, because they didn't have sex before they were married, because pornography is the de facto sex education, and that doesn't really appeal to many people, women particularly, because it's a completely fictitious portrayal of female sexuality.
Right.
So how does a woman arrives at the age of 30, is about to try to have a baby, is married to a man who grew up in this country as well, and nobody knows what they're doing, nobody feels like they have permission to touch themselves, and it's like, so you go into back to what happens when you become a parent and you sort of forget that you are a sexual being. Well, for many women in this country, we never had an identity as a sexual being. That was something that we weren't there's no context for that. So now we have hormones raging, we're sleep deprived, we're in our kids are our lives, and it's a great excuse not to have sex to maintain the relationship, because that's really all it's ever been for you.
I was having a conversation with my trainer this morning. Hold, please. This will make sense in a second. And we were talking about Cardi B. Hold, please. I will get to the point. And I was saying, what I so love about Cardi B is that she doesn't kind of minimize her past in order to maintain this celebrity image. She's not like, okay, well, yeah, one time I was a dancer, but anyway, I'm the singer now. She's like, I was a fucking stripper, I was a hooker, and I loved it. And here's what she so owns herself and her past in a way that is, I am so jealous of. I feel like I'm 95% owning who I am, and which is a high number.
I was going to say seems high
totally.
For anybody.
I literally asked my trainer, I was like, what percentage of you is authentically you? He was like, 90%. And I was like, no, you're like 80%. But she's a perfect example of somebody who owns that in a space that is not common for women to A, own their sexuality, but B, own a past that people would conceivably judge pretty harshly. And it's so authentic, and it feels so I'm so attracted to that energy. Yeah. And obviously it's easier for me to do that than a woman, but to watch her do that in a way is just so fantastic.
So on your parenting journey then, Zöe, do you mind sharing with us, did you ever have some kind of a realization that you might have been losing your own self, or losing your pursuit of pleasure, or losing your own sense of satisfaction in the midst of sleep deprivation when you were...
Or sanity, or losing your sanity, or your mind, or
in your parenting journey?
Okay, so I have a 16-year-old son and a 26-year-old daughter. Two different dads, two completely different contexts in which I had these kids. My daughter, my first kid, this is such a story. I was in a 10-year sexless marriage. How did I get pregnant, you ask, in a sexless marriage?
Please do tell us.
It was a miracle. It was like...
It was a six-pack of Zima and, Sweet Home Alabama, right? Like that's how y'all do it, I think? Yeah.
He was a black man, so there was no Sweet Home Alabama going on in our house.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah.
Wonderfully awkward moment. Look at that. Those assumptions made.
And tequila, no Zima. So
yeah, she isn't 87, David.
I am though. I am.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Yeah, there wasn't really a great, and we can dive into that. That man that I was married to is now a woman. So just recent, as of about a month ago, has transitioned.
At 62, right?
Yes,
right? She's 62 now.
She's 62.
And we were talking about this yesterday about there's one angle I think which is like, oh my God, like you're so much older in life to have this realization, like, oh my God. And then the other part, which was something that Katy Perry said on American Idol, which is like how wonderful to find who you are, because some people don't get that opportunity. Some people die before they find out who they are. So when she transitioned, did that impact you at all personally as far as your relationship in the past was concerned? Or did it feel separate enough to where it was just kind of like, oh, good for you?
Yes. Both. Right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying last night, everybody that I sort of reveal this to, she is very open. My ex is extremely open, like very much, and has always been this person, it's like, this is who I am. I mean, when she was a man and we were married, she was a black man, beautiful, who had like long hair and a blonde streak and shaved half of his head. And so has always sort of pushed boundaries and not been afraid of attention and setting an example and self-expression and all of that. So there's an aspect, and I was aware of some bisexuality and, just sort of, just a certain level of freedom and adventurousness in that realm. And so, it made perfect sense. Like, there's an aspect of like, oh, and there's also an aspect of like, oh my fucking God, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So it's both. I was not at all surprised, and I was utterly stunned. And yes, look, being who I am, right? We're very close. We've been very close. We have a nice little sort of triangular family constellation with my daughter. They both live in New Mexico, where my husband and I are heading after Oliver sort of is done here. And, there's an aspect of like, great, who are you now? And I was able to help like organize her thoughts about what was happening to her, like what she was experiencing. Like, there's, and maybe some of the people, I have a feeling that your audience is very hip.
All three of them, yes.
All three of them. They're a great trio of people.
Yeah, we have 2 hips and a head, so yes.
So, there's an aspect of like your sex, which is, your body parts. Do you have a penis? Do you have a vulva? What anatomy were you born with? And then there's your gender, which is like, are you a man or a woman or somewhere in between, or do you flow back and forth? And then there's your orientation. Who do you like to have sex with? And here's a person who has been feeling something and experiencing something and not really tapping into that part of themselves, and then all of a sudden that reveals itself, and there's no real context for that. So like, am I gay? Who am I attracted to now? Wait, I want to have sex embodying, a woman and that energy. And in the case of my ex is, has no intention of, so far, this could change, but does not want breasts, loves her penis. There's that sort of cocktail of these 3 different areas of selfhood that, you get to explore.
The way you described that was so simple and beautiful. And I so wish I could just take that and put it on, like, buy 30 seconds on Fox News and just like put it on to where Tucker Carlson once stood, and just put it on there to be like, here's what sex is, here's what gender is, here's what orientation is. And they because it's so, people are like, well, he's got a penis, why is he pretending to be a girl? And you so simply put that in a really beautiful way, which is wonderful.
And start with cocktail, like you said, a wonderful cocktail.
It's the Holy Trinity.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
So back to sex, the act.
You're
I'm still
obsessed with it,
curious.
Dave. Oh my God,
hey,
obsessed.
I've got a sexologist at my not fingertips, obviously, at my eyeballs. But so going back to, though, you were in a 10-year sexless relationship, marriage, which there's probably a lot to be read in there. But I'm curious, were you a sexologist at the time, or did you become a sexologist in reaction to realizing, wait a minute, I've been missing out on an awful lot of pleasure for the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's it. Here I am. I had a very I grew up with very sort of liberal, educated, free parents who really sort of like gave me a sort of environment in which I was able to masturbate and even have sex with a boyfriend in my bedroom. And I felt very healthy sexually. And then I get into this marriage, and it's essentially, I mean, you know, we're in our 20s, so there's a lot of like, what was I doing, and what did you say to me, and how did that go down? But for the most part, we had a really healthy, loving, hilarious relationship. Like we had more fun in that 10 years that we were together than maybe I've had since.
I'm glad to hear you point that out too, because obviously sex can be separate from fun, and that it wasn't a miserable time. It just happened to be a non-intimate time.
Right.
And it was a positive experience, right? Like we talked about this before, where like it isn't unsuccessful because it's over or because you didn't have sex. It continues to be successful in the way you co-parent and have that sort of intimacy as, I guess, friends.
Well, I always, I mean, for decades now, I've been saying we're like brother and sister, and now I guess I have to say we're like sisters, which doesn't feel right either. So when you ask me about, like,
especially when you say, "Oh, did you just fuck your sister?" I sure did. We had a kid. So and they're like, "Wait, excuse me?" And let me walk that back.
But I think it's interesting that you did grow up in a liberal household where sex was celebrated or embraced. And,
yes.
And did you feel like, oh, this is just what life is, and it's okay, and I'm still having fun, so that's fine, and I don't miss sex? Or you were like, wait a minute,
I was very troubled. I was very troubled this whole time. And it's sort of, I mean, I can now, through the lens of what I know about my ex-husband's sexuality, I now can go back through a new lens and say, okay, so when I said, I don't know, I can't, like, you know, my early 20s self, thinking like, I'm very attracted to my husband. He's beautiful. We have a great relation. I love this man. Like and why don't I want to have sex? There's something wrong with me. I went to my gynecologist. She was like, you know, I can tell you, like, I'll run whatever blood tests you want, but I'm going to tell you that, like, you're a healthy woman. And if you're not wanting to have sex with your husband, there's something happening in your relationship. And I just I wasn't really willing to see it, or I couldn't see it, you know? And so you know, the best that I could think about it at the time was that we're sexually incompatible because we want the same things in bed. We both want to be dominated in bed, you know, like that was the flavor that I could bring to it. You know, we were in the cycle of what I now know to be desire discrepancy. And we were entrenched in the cycle of, like, you know, request, rejection, and what that does to a relationship. You know, I didn't want my husband to go outside the relationship, and I didn't want to have sex with him, and I knew it wasn't fair to ask that he never have sex, you know, and it was a total conundrum, and I didn't know what to do about it. And we have a life together, you know. Before at the end of that 10 years, we had a baby. We separated when she was 4 months old. We had dogs. We had bought a house together. Like, we had a whole life to deconstruct. And so at that point, you know, when I realized at my 6-week postpartum checkup, when I got the okay to have sex, and I mean, sidebar here, but I had never been, after I gave birth, my son was a C-section. My daughter was a vaginal birth, and after I gave birth, I had never to that date had never been so horny. I had never been so turned on. I joke that she flipped the switch on her way out, and she flipped it in many different levels, you know.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and so in that 6 weeks before that checkup, I was like, oh my God, it's back. Oh my God, I'm cured. Oh wow. I was ravenous. And I went to the appointment, drove home. My ex was with our daughter, and I walked in, and you know, he knew where I had been and was sort of hopeful that we'd get the green light. And I took one look at him and was like, oh, wow. Like every ounce of desire drained out of me. And I went into the bathroom and sobbed, you know, because I thought that's it. Like, this can't go on. This cannot go on. It's not okay for either of us.
Yeah.
I can feel those things again. There isn't anything wrong with me. There's actually something going on in this relationship, and I'm done.
Yeah, we just aren't the people to satisfy that part of it for each other.
Right.
Now, so moving on to parenting and parenthood. First of all, you posted recently photos of your daughter, who is a PhD biology candidate who's studying in Antarctica. You posted these photos, and I was like, first of all, she's so old and so beautiful. But second of all, I was like, there's just something so magnificent about, like, I'm getting my PhD and I'm in Antarctica. Like, how fucking cool is that? She was probably not always so inspiring and wonderful and crazy. And any parenting horror stories that maybe she's partly involved with that we can put into her PhD biology dissertation?
We love to be able to say, how was your kid an asshole today?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I was thinking last night about, like, parenting horror stories, and Rachel definitely gave me a run for my money in a few different ways. One of the things, I had this experience with her that I will never forget, that I really wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. We traveled to Hawaii. We were in Kauai, and we had other family with us. And I can't quite remember, but like extended family vacation. And we went to lunch at a sort of upscale hotel down in Poipu. And at some point, Rachel had to use the bathroom. She was 7 at the time. I believe I have that right. Right around 7, maybe a little bit younger. So I take her to the bathroom in this hotel, like off the hotel lobby, and we go in, and I leaned over. I had my sunglasses on my head. I leaned over. The sunglasses fall in the toilet. Oh, joy. Right. Mm-hmm. I am not a squeamish person, and I'm not a germaphobe, but that even pushed my boundaries. I like reaching into a public toilet and pulling out my sunglasses. So I did that. I reached in. I was just like, okay, here we go. And I pulled them out, and I leave the stall and go wash them in the sink. In the meantime, Rachel closes the stall door and locks it. And she pees. And she is absolutely petrified to like a phobic level of automatic flushing toilets. And she
relatable.
Yeah. So she's in there with the door closed. It's a it's kind of a fancy schmancy hotel. So the stall doors, I don't know why this is exactly, but when you're in an upscale place, the stall doors go almost to the floor.
Mm-hmm. So you can't climb under.
I can't climb under.
Even if you're not a germaphobe, you can't flatten yourself on a piss-colored floor and covered floor and get under the door.
That's right.
That's the problem.
And at some point, I would have had to have done that, and I would have done it, and then what? Like take a bird bath in the bathroom sink until I get home and do the
and that's what you
the
do.
Silkwood thing, right? So there I was. And she pees, and she won't get off the toilet, and the door is locked, and that's the end of human existence for my daughter and me because she won't move.
We grow old and die here. This is it.
That's it. And I'm sitting there. Meanwhile, our family is like, "Where are they? what's happening. We're in there for a long time. And there's, it's such a nice bathroom that there's a beautiful chair, like an overstuffed chair sitting in the corner. And like, I'm trying to convince her to get off the toilet. It's okay. It's not going to swallow you. You're going to be okay. Just sit there and prepare yourself and then open the door and run out. Like, it's going to be okay. And she was just petrified. She wouldn't do it. And she was just, refused. And so we sat there for a long time.
Is she still there? Is that where she's getting her PhD?
Yes.
Is she still in that bathroom?
Yes. So at some point, after like all kinds of ninja mind tricks, she says to me, this little voice, and then I sit down and we're like quiet for a little while. And I hear this little voice from beyond the door going, what if I just get up and let the toilet flush and get out of the stall?
You're like, yes, bitch. I've been saying that. Like, my God.
She's like a man. You had to convince her that it was her idea herself.
Right.
So that she would.
There it is. Yep.
I think I needed to give her space to like work it out for herself. Like, how am I going to get out of here? Like, I've created the situation for myself. I relate, I've created the situation for myself that I don't know how to get out of.
That's great parenting advice. And along those lines, I want to ask, what are your, say, top 3 or top 1 or whatever bits of advice for parents wanting to raise sexually healthy children, age appropriate? Yeah. But I want to couch that with saying, surely there's a time in your life where your children have been utterly mortified by their mom, the sexologist.
The story that I make up is that they're secretly really impressed.
I'm sure they are.
My son does a hilarious impression of me sitting at my desk. He pretends to log on to my computer and he says, "Hi, I'm Mommy Kors, and I help women feel better about their vaginas."
Wow. Fantastic.
And you should be proud of that. That's great. You're welcome, son.
Yeah. He also he went into my Instagram with my permission and blocked all of his friends from my Instagram account.
That is smart. Such a gift you gave him, honestly, because I can imagine if when I was a kid, my parents had social media and were embarrassed, or like doing anything that could be thought of as embarrassing. Yeah. To be able to block all of that, fantastic. Kind
of for my tween who might or might not be aware that I'm on a podcast called Gatriarchs, and she would be like, what? But so what would you say to parents to hopefully raise sexually healthy kids?
Yeah, normalize call body parts by what they are. Don't say things like down there or, whatever. Like, use the real names. It's a vulva, it's a vagina, it's a penis, it's a scrotum. There are testicles in the scrotum. Like, say it all.
We have to, there's so many like creams and stuff when you have kids and babies and stuff. And I have to, because we have so many kids and so many creams for things. I literally have a cream upstairs that says Hannah Vulva. Yeah. Because I just need to make sure I have the right cream for the right body parts.
Right. And, I think one of the best gifts that my mom ever gave me is that I started masturbating when I was 3, like in the living room, against the edge of the coffee table. And, and my mom, who is a preschool teacher and knows kids really well and was not shocked at anything, wasn't quite sure what to do because apparently I was doing it a lot. Ooh. And so she asked the pediatrician what she should do, how she should handle that. And thankfully, he said he didn't look particularly woke, or a 1967 version of woke. Yeah. But he did say, he said, don't tell her to stop. Just tell her that that's perfectly fine, but she needs to do that in the privacy of her own room. Mm-hmm. And so, it's super common with kids that they touch themselves. It's more common and normalized with boys because they grow up with their penises in their hands.
And we're a patriarchal society, so that's also
right.
Part of
but
it.
It's also, yes, and you're touching your penis to pee. Your genitals are external. You can see it all. With us, even the external parts, you kind of need a mirror to really see what's going on there. So that's part 2, is that I can't emphasize enough, particularly I mean, this goes for all human beings, no matter what you have, male, female, intersex, whatever you've got going on, know your body, master your instrument. There is, I can't emphasize the level of trauma that we live with as adults because we don't know the bodies that we're walking around in, and either explicitly or implicitly we've been shamed for having these body parts that are beautiful and functional, and like you brush your teeth, you comb your hair, you take a shower, you eat good food, you masturbate. It's all just very, very normal and healthy.
I love that. That's so wonderful. Zöe, you're amazing. Where can people find you on the internet, and where can they buy your book?
My book is called Radical Intimacy, and you can buy it anywhere you buy books. There's also an audio book on Audible and everywhere that I narrated. I mean, I read it. Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed those recording sessions. I used to front a punk band, so being back in the studio in any capacity was fun for me. And my hub is zoekors.com. I feel like there's so much more to say about parenting, and I know that's kind of your sort of flavor.
Yeah, but you know what? We'll maybe we'll bring you back for a round 2, and we can dive further in. But thank you so much for coming by and helping Gavin with his sexuality, because he's really been struggling a little bit, and I so appreciate it. But I'm sure everyone just learned a lot. I certainly did. And thank you so much for getting up very early, and happy birthday.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
So, something great. So this week, don't laugh at my something great, Gavin. I can already tell you're going to laugh at me. But it's great. We talked about before, like, I like when people are good at things. I like watching shows where people make things. So this week, my something great is Ryan Seacrest. Now, the reason Gavin just put his hand over his face. So we like to watch American Idol, mostly like hate watch it, right? But like, you watch him host a live show, the skill level he has to keep things moving, to know which camera's going well when a person says something that he wasn't expecting. He's just an expert at hosting, and you realize that job is really fucking hard, and he's really great at it. And Ryan Seacrest, you're my something great this week. Gavin, what about you?
So this weekend, over the last year, I've received a little bit of social media suggestions from teenagers because of actually another podcast that I occasionally do locally. And one of the teenagers said to me, you might as well embrace social media and be on it with your kid, because this girl said to me, I really like it that my dad sends me snaps and it makes me feel like we're engaging, and instead of him being against social media, he's with it. So kind of along those lines, this Saturday, it was just me and the kids because I was solo daddy again. And we ended up having an evening where we were all just Snapchatting together. My younger son, who doesn't have a phone yet, but he was on his iPad. We were all playing Among Us, which was fun because we were all in separate rooms, but then yelling at each other at the same time, saying, you're the imposter. No, you're the imposter. No, I'm not the imposter. And then we were Snapchatting each other. And it was a something great evening where I was engaging on my damn screen with them, even though at the same time I was like, I just want to read the New York Times. But it was great. It was something great. I'm such a loser.
And that's our show. If you have any questions, suggestions, or general compliments, you can email us at gatriarchspodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can DM us on Instagram. We are at gatriarchspodcast. On the internet, David is David FM Vaughn everywhere, and Gavin is at Gavin Lodge when he's had enough to drink.
Please leave us a glowing 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks, and we'll harass you next time on another episode of Gatriarchs. You can click off in the middle of the story if you need to, because I know you need to go. But one time my kid was pooping in France in one of those Turkish toilets, just like the hole in the ground.
Yeah.
She needed help wiping. So I reached over and I was like, I don't really know what to do. There was no toilet paper to be found because France. And so I bent over and I was like, well, I guess I'll just literally wipe your butt with my hand because I don't know what else to do, right? I do. And my sunglasses fell out of my pocket.
Oh my God.
Into the hole. They were Ray-Bans and they were new. And I'm like, I'm not losing these. So I reached into the hole and got my sunglasses out. washed them off. There was no soap. Washed them out. Just thought, well, I can't touch my face, right? I went, and there was another dad that I was with, and I told him this story. Like, this is actually really embarrassing, but it's really fucking funny, so we're going to laugh about it. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, that's why you have to carry tissues with you. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, French, you're such a pain in the ass. Then my next kid had to poop, and he's like, oh, here, take my tissues that I happen to have with me, and don't forget your sunglasses. I'm like that's going to happen again. It did.
Oh,
the exact same thing happened 2 times in a row. And I still have those fucking sunglasses.
Oh my God.
Wow.
They've been anointed.
Wow.
Those are like
Twice.
those are like sacred sunglasses.
Twice.
Right?
I'm not losing those puppies.